Hello everyone, welcome back to my another video. So on this video we will be looking into like how you can create a React application from scratch, because most of the time we use create React app script. That's good and all if you want to like set up a project really quickly and start working on it, because the tedious process of like setting up your own project is like all of the configs that you need to do. But the main purpose of this video is to show you guys, like it's not that difficult, like to create a React app from scratch, which I'm going to demo today. And I'll even, like show you what are the benefits of doing so. All right. So if you guys enjoy this kind of content on the channel, feel free to give a thumbs up to the video, subscribe to the channel, and make sure you turn on that notification bell so that you don't miss any future uploads from this channel. On my left hand side, I'm going to put the VS Code, and on my right, I have, I'm just opening the Webpack documentation to show you, like what are the stuff we are going to be using today. And Webpack is, like one of the core stuff that we will learn today. Okay, I'm on empty directory right now. This is the directory that I'm in. I don't have any files up here. So in order to create any sort of like JavaScript application, what you want to have is you want to have the ability to install packages using npm. So you have to initialize your project so that it supports npm. So in order to do that, what you want to do is let's see if I can minimize this a little bit. You want to type npm init, and if you don't want any manual configs, you can just do -y and press enter, so that will give you all of the defaults. But for this video, I'm just going to enter everything manually. Press enter, and it's asking me for the package name, so I can just do React app from scratch. And version number, it's going to start with 1.0, so that's fine. I'm just going to press enter. Description, this demonstrate, or what do we want to add it? Let's do something like, just add it like create React application from scratch. So that should be good enough. Entry point, so this is the place where your app will start working on, like what is the entry file. We can just say it as index.js. Test command, we're not going to write any tests, so we can just press enter. Git repository, you can put your Git repo in here. I'm going to like initialize the Git later on, so I'm just going to like press enter right here. Keywords, I can just simply do React and Webpack. And author, I'm just going to put JavaScript programmer. Press enter. And license, it's going to be completely open source project, so I'm just going to put MIT. So once you're done with that, you will get prompted with all of the like values that you put just now. So you have a chance to like check over here to make sure everything is correct, and if everything looks good, you can simply say yes and press enter. So that will sort of generate a package.json file for you. So this is the stuff that we have. So now what it allows us to do is now we can install packages from npm. So that's the whole purpose of like doing this. I'm just going to clear this terminal. During this video, most of our time will be like spent on doing some configs and installing a bunch of packages. So I want to start by installing the packages for React. There are two packages that you need from React. So you want to do npm I. So if you're using yarn, you can do yarn add. And the two packages are React for sure, and the other package that you need is react-dom. Make sure you install that. Okay, nice. So that is done. So as you can see, if I go here, it added a dependencies section, and inside that I have React and react-dom. You know what, let's do one thing. since it already installed, created some files and node modules, I don't want to track this on node modules, so I want to, initialize the git too right now. So I'm just going to create a new file on the root directory called git ignore. And what I want to do is I want to get on, let's see if I can get the git ignore file. Hold on a minute. Okay, I'm just gonna copy a bunch of stuff and put it over here. You can just simply, get these things online, so you don't have to worry about that. But I want to make one change over here. Later on, we're gonna run the build script, and our build script will create a bundle. Don't worry about it. I'll explain everything later on. But I don't want to track this folder, by git. Okay, now I want to do git status on terminal. It says that git hasn't initialized yet, so we can do that by doing git init. As soon as you do that, as you can see, the color on node modules has been changed because we added that inside the git ignore file. So now this is no longer going to get tracked. Okay, we're done with git ignore file. And now let's start installing the dependencies from Webpack actually. So before we even do that, I'm just going to simply explain, what Webpack does and why it is important. And later on, because we can't go in more depth because it's going to be, super long video if we do that. You can spend, a bunch of hours, just talking about Webpack. So we're just going to make it short and sweet for this video. So whenever you're using a create React app script, even though you don't know, it uses Webpack behind the scene in order to bundle your components, all of your assets, all of your, styling, those kind of files. On your right side, you can see, there are, JavaScript files, images, you might have your Sass files and CSS files. And what Webpack does is when you run build command, it takes all of those files from your directory or your source folder, and it bundles them together. It does some kind of processing. We will see in the later part of the video how bundling works and how we can manually set up a config for those. And it creates a one giant, bundle, which you can, serve it on the web. Basically, if you run that giant bundle, it's going to create some sort of, bundle.js file. And once you do that, if you just take that file and inject it inside, some sort of HTML template, and if you run that HTML file, your browser can understand, whatever you need. So basically, long story short, it takes a bunch of files and creates a new, giant file which can be read by browser. Okay, now we have a fair amount of information on what Webpack is and what Webpack does. Let's start by installing some dependencies from Webpack. So I want to do npm I. All of the dependencies related to Webpack are going to be dev dependencies, meaning we don't need them in, when we ship our app. Over here, you can see React and ReactDOM are regular dependencies, meaning, let's say you are in production mode, and if someone is, your code is in web, we need React and ReactDOM for our code to work. But as soon as we serve our app on web, we don't need Webpack, because we just need Webpack to create a build and bundle all of our assets. And once you're about to ship it, there is no purpose of Webpack at that point. So we're going to install it as a dev dependency. To install any packages as a dev dependency, you can do something like dash save dev, or what I like to do is you can just do dash and uppercase D. That will make sure we install these packages as dev dependency. So there are three packages from Webpack that we need. One is going to be Webpack itself. Another one is Webpack-CLI. And the last package that we need is Webpack dev server. So Webpack CLI allows us to use a bunch of Webpack command line interfaces. And webpack dev server is used to fire up our like local dev server, which is like open on somewhere like on port like localhost like whatever, it doesn't matter. That's the purpose of dev server. I want to install that. Okay, test. Yeah, so far we're waiting good, so let's wait for that install to go through. And while we're like waiting for that installation, I'm going to briefly explain what we're going to install next. So it is related to Babel. So if you don't know what Babel is, it's a code transpiler, meaning, let's say if you're using ES6 syntax, let's say if you're using arrow functions, you're fine like to use those like on your file. But let's say when you're about to ship your app, your browser doesn't understand those languages. Because to be fair, we can say like browser are still like really old versions, to say. So in order to make our code shippable and backward compatible, so that like older browsers also like will understand our code base, we need a package from Babel. What it will do is it will transpile all of your fancy code into browser readable format. That's the only purpose of using Babel. Okay, now we know what Babel does and what Babel means. Is now it's time to install the dependencies. So there are quite a bit of dependencies that we need from Babel, and they are going to be dev dependencies as well, meaning like as soon as we compile our code or transpile our code and create a bundle out of it, we don't need it in production. So the first package we need from Babel is Babel /core. I think this is it. And the second one is at Babel /preset-env. Another one is Babel, make sure I spell it right, /preset/ since we're creating React application, I want to get the preset of React as well. And the last package, I believe like it's Babel -loader. So as soon as we install these dependencies, this Babel code is needed for all of this to work. Babel /preset-env and preset React, we're going to use it right away, and we're going to use Babel loader when we are setting up our webpack config. Let's install that. So while we wait for that installation, in order to write a config for Babel, what you need to do is you want to create a file in the root directory called .babel-rc. As soon as you do that, like VS Code knows this is the Babel config file, so it creates a a cool icon, so that's cool. And inside the Babel config, what you want to have is, so we don't have to do any like a lot of fancy stuff over here. We're just going to put like those presets that we installed and just put it over here. And the way to do it is you can create an object. Inside that object, you can provide a key called presets, and this is going to be an array. And what you want to have over here is basically the same thing that we installed earlier, which is going to be, you know what, let me see if I can copy this, because I don't want to waste your guys' time trying to like write the same thing. One is going to be at Babel /preset-react, and another one is Babel -env. Hopefully I haven't messed up anything. So if I have like done everything correctly, and let's say I don't think we have to come back on this file later on. So that's pretty much it in terms of Babel RC file. So this will make sure like our fancy JavaScript files or JSX or whatever can be like it will be like browser friendly. That's it. Okay, we added Babel. Let's see what are the other dependencies that we need. So we install Webpack, and okay, the last dependencies, I think, or not the last one, but just so like set up the Webpack config. Another dependency that we need is it is HTML Webpack plugin. So what it allows us to do, you know what? Let's install the package, and I'm gonna explain it later on. it's going to be a dep dependency as well. So this is one of the webpacks plugin. So it's HTML webpack plugin. So basically what this does is it creates the index.html file, because you can't just inject your JavaScript into browser, right? You need some sort of HTML template before you can insert or inject, like your script tags to serve the JavaScript. So this is really useful while doing that. You can provide your own templates of index.html file if you like, and if you don't want, it can create, by itself too. Okay, now that is done. Let's I think at this point we're ready to set up our webpack config now. On your root directory, let's see, do I have to commit? You know what, let's commit some files. Git add git, because I'm going to push this code later on GitHub so that you guys can check it out. We set up babel. I think that should be good enough for the commit message. Yeah, that's a really bad commit message, to be honest. You want to have some sort of good commit message, but for now it's okay. Okay, on your root directory now, what you want to do is you want to create a webpack config file. So the way to do it is you would name it as webpack.config.js. As soon as you do that, VS Code creates a nice icon which matches this one, so you know that this is a webpack related file. Okay, now I'm gonna close this terminal because I don't think we need any sort of other packages to install, at least for now. So we're gonna need two imports over here. First one is gonna be path. I'm gonna do require. So over here, okay, I'm gonna explain something over here. On the webpack config file, we can't use regular imports that you use on on your JSX or on your React. We're gonna have to use common JS syntax. So we will replace all of the imports statements with require. Do require, and inside that I want to grab that path from path module. So if you notice this path and check over here, we don't have any packages called path which we install, but we are trying to import that. So where does that come from? So basically, as soon as you have your Node.js installed on your machine, which is, by the way, I forgot to mention, before even getting started on this project, you need to have npm and node installed on your machine. So that was my bad, so I missed that part. And it is a module. There is a path module on Node.js. It comes directly from Node, so we don't have to install it manually. And other thing is, I want to install that plugin that we installed earlier, which was HTML webpack plugin, and we're going to use the same common JS syntax as well, and it's going to come from HTML webpack plugin. Okay, so that should be it in terms of all of the imports. Now, so how do we set up the config for webpack? In order to make things simpler, let me provide you the high level overview of what we're going to be doing over here. We're going to tell webpack where to start bundling our files, or our assets, all of this kind of stuff. And we're going to tell webpack to where, once you are done processing, meaning once you are on this, if you're looking at right hand side, once this is all done and compiled, where do we want to put our that final bundle to? We're going to name specify the directory. And let's say, because webpack doesn't know, right, if you're using a JS or JavaScript files, right? For those, we're going to tell webpack to use specific kind of loaders so that all of our files are processed properly. And I think the last thing that we'll be using is make a use of this HTML webpack plugin so that we can set our own templates of index.html file. That way Webpack will take our template file and insert that bundle, once everything is ready. Because bundle is just the regular JavaScript files, but it's going to be, it looks pretty complex, Webpack, when Webpack does compiling. I'll show you guys, and once we reach there. Okay, now we have some sort of idea on where we are going. So let's start, like setting up the config. Since we're using common.js syntax over here, I want to do module dot exports equals to, it's going to be an object. Inside this object, we want to have, oops, it should be exports, not export. Yep. Over here. So now we want to tell, like Webpack, all right, what is the first place that you will be looking at before even bundling our packages? For that, there is a property called entry. And inside these codes, we want to specify the directory where our entry file is. Now, we can do something like, since we are on the root directory, we can do something like /, meaning that we are still in root directory, but we are looking for different directory. We're going to say go to source, because we're going to put all of our, like all of our files underneath the source directory later. Inside the source, look for index.js file. This way, Webpack will know, all right, I need to go to source directory and I'm going to look for index.js file. So right now we don't have that. Let's create a new folder in a root directory. I'm going to name it as source, and inside that source, I'm going to create a file called index.js. Okay, there's nothing in there, but it's fine for now. All right, now, once Webpack knows how to, like which file to go through, at first, now we want to say, all right, now Webpack, now you're done, like bundling, doing your magic. Now, where do you want to put your code? So we can say it as output, and it's going to be a object, and we can say something like, so all right, the first thing is we need to tell Webpack where to put our output file. So we're going to specify a function called path, and the path that we imported earlier, it helps us to maneuver through, like the directories. So we can use that one. We want to do path dot join. It takes two arguments. One is going to be __ directory name, and the second argument is the name of the directory. So as we discussed earlier, we're going to put everything on the dist folder. So that's why, so this will be the directory where all of our, like bundled stuff will go. That's why I added it in the gitignore file too earlier, because I don't want to push that code along, because this is required whenever you are serving your assets. As soon as Webpack does compiling and you go to this directory, you're going to see a bundle file. And the only thing that you need to do in order to serve your code to the web is just, like get hold of this bundle, and that's it. You don't need anything else. Now we specify our path. Now we want to say, how do we want to name our output bundle? There is a property called file name, and it's going to be a string. All right, I want to name my file as bundle dot. I want to use array-like syntax, and there is a property called content has .js. Right here, you can completely remove this this content has portion. You can completely remove this, and it will still work, and it will create a bundle.js file once all of the thing is processing. And this is what you need, like in terms of JavaScript bundle to serve your project. The reason I did that was, while you're on, on development phase, right? Meaning you're constantly changing your files. And let's say, for example, you have two components, app1 and app2. Let's say you're just making change on app1, then you don't need to like run the build on app2, right? Because there is no point of like running a build on app2 because you haven't made any changes up there. So once we specify content has over here, what it does is it creates a file called bundle dot and whole bunch of random strings in there, which is going to be your hash. As soon as a Webpack tries to build your project on app1, as soon as you save it, what it allows us to do is it will tell Webpack to, all right, I don't need to like run the build on app 2, I will just run a build on app 1. So you will have some sort of caching behavior, and it will like drastically help you like while you're on dev phase, like especially if you have like giant project. That's the only purpose. And for output, I'm going to have one more property, so that is going to be clean, and I'm going to say it as true. The reason to do that is because if you don't provide this value, it's just going to create a bunch of bundles in the dist folder every time you run the build. But rather, I only want to have like the small portion, not like I don't want to like create a whole new bundle every time I run the build. I just want to either override or like just make it make out directory clean, which in this case will be dist directory. If I'm not wrong, I think that's pretty much it in terms of our output folder. Now also, okay, let me think about it. What do we want to have up here? Okay, I think let's start doing there's one more property called DevTool. So I'm gonna say it as source map. What this will do is it will generate a source map, meaning because once you're done like bundling your asset, because this is not like human readable at all, so I'll tell you that. But if you're working on like working locally, right, or if you're like still on initial initial timeline like on your project, you still want to see your source code, because you can run a debugger tool, and like you want to see like what's going on your project. So that's the reason we added this as a source map. What this allows us to do is it allows us to view our source, meaning all of our code in the browser. I mean, there is a good way to like show this source map is you can set up the mode, and if the mode is dev, meaning development, you want to show the source map. And if you're already in production, meaning your app is already shipped, you can like completely omit this step. You can use like conditional statements to do that, but for now, let's just like make it simple and just put as source map. Now we have a dev tool, we have our entry output. Okay, let's start by writing rules. Before even writing a rules, let me say, so what are the purpose of rules, right? Writing rules. Rules will like tell Webpack to use certain kind of loaders. Let's say if I'm using JavaScript, I want to have specific kind of loaders to bundle those. Let's say I'm using images, right? This PNG or like JPEG right here. I want to use different kind of loaders. If I'm dealing with any sort of CSS processors like Sass or regular CSS, I want to use different kind of loaders. So that's the purpose. Like this is also the good thing about like using our like configuring your Webpack like manually. That way you have full control over like what you want to have in your project basically. In order to write a rules, there is a property called module. It's an object. And inside that, there is a property called rules, which is an array. Within here, you can provide all of the rules that you need to bundle any sort of, like files. For now, we're just going to deal with, like a one rule right now. We're going to add, like a few more later in the video. Okay, what do I want to deal with first? Since we're dealing with JavaScript and React, let's give it a rule for JavaScript files. And inside this object, before even writing a rules, we need to find out, right? Let's say if you're dealing with some sort of, let's say I'm dealing with app.js files. Before even determining what kind of loader to use, I need to find out, like if there is a .js extension to it, right? We're going to check, like, or we're going to test it. So in order to do that, there is a property called test. And it takes regular expression, so you can just do 2 slashes and 1 forward slash in the middle, and you want to say .js and $sign after JS, meaning all of the files that will end with JavaScript, or not sorry JavaScript.js. So now we test it using regular expression. Now what we need to do is while bundling our JavaScript, we only want to bundle under like whatever it's like underneath the source directory, right? Because we don't want to bundle node modules. So if we look at node modules, there's going to be like plenty of packages or libraries like with the .js syntax, like .js extensions. We don't want to bundle those. So if you want to, like exclude, or like don't want to compile those, what you can do is you can use a property called exclude, and inside two slashes, I'm just going to name the directory. So node modules. Okay. Now we have the ability to test, we have the ability to exclude. Now let's specify, like what kind of loaders that we want to use for this file. In order to use that loader, there's a property called use, and this is going to be object, and there is a property called loader. And since we're just going to be using one loader, we can simply provide a string, and that's the package that we want to use to load our JavaScript is going to be babel loader that we didn't use it earlier after installing it. You can simply copy that and paste it right there. Okay, now everything should be good in terms of now we should be able to process all of the JavaScript files because we just added a rule to process the JavaScript. Now that is good. Now the only thing remaining on this file is to make a use of this plugin. I want to copy that, and where do I want to go is I want to go right underneath this module object, and there I'm going to say there is a property called plugins, and plugin is an array. You can provide a bunch of plugins if you want, but for this video we're just using HTML Webpack plugin. If you guys are really interested, like if you are, like there are a bunch of plugins, like even if we go to documentation, some of the useful plugins are to like minify your code. That way your bundle size will be smaller and your app, like a load time will be way better in production. So you can just explore, like go to Webpack documentation, and if you go to right here plugins. If you go right here, you can see a bunch of plugins that you can use. But for now, we're just going to be using HTML Webpack plugin. In order to use a plugin, you can use a new keyword. And just, since we copied this name, we can simply paste that in there. And now you can just leave it as is for this one, and it will take the default values. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to provide an option for plugins. If you want to provide some sort of options inside this parentheses, you want to have curly braces, and I'm just going to use one property from here, which is going to be a template. Basically, it will tell Webpack plugin to, alright, you can do whatever you want with the HTML file, but you're going to have to use my template. Basically, that's pretty much it. And the template, I'm going to provide it from, you're going to specify the directory over here, which is going to be source/index.html. So that way Webpack knows, all right, I'm going to have to do some, like a magic within the index.html file, but I can't create my own. Rather, I will have to use this template. Since we specify this template, now let's go ahead and create that like index.html file. Since we specified it will be underneath the source directory, I'm going to go to source, and here I'm going to create a file called index.js html, and I'm just going to use the bang operator, and if I press tab, it will generate a boilerplate HTML for me. And what do I want to name the title? Not document. I'm going to say simple React application. Okay, that should be good enough of title. And inside that body, the only change that you want is it's going to be a div. Hold on. Yep, right there. It's going to be a div. And inside that div, I want to provide an ID, and the ID is going to be, what do I name it? Let's just name it root for now. Okay, the purpose of adding the root, or or this div, is later on our index.js file when we are about to create a React application out of it, because right now we're not specifying anything related to React, right? Once we provide this ID, we're going to use a method from document, and we're going to inject, like this div to our DOM. So this is going to be the top level div within our project, basically. And this is just a simple HTML. So if you're wondering, like where is the script tag to insert the JavaScript in here, because we don't need to specify that one, because that's the purpose of like installing. Since we installed this one, it's going to do all of the job for us. We don't have to manually set up the script tag. Now I think we are good on this index.html file too. Now we can close that one. I think the only remaining part now is to set up our, what do we want to set up next? I think we can go to index.js actually. Let's make sure that since we're working on it right now, we only have a reference to JavaScript. Now let's make this project a React project. Now we're gonna do that. On index.js file, since this is the entry point of file of our project, we're going to import React from React, and also we want to import a method called create root, I believe, and we're gonna import that from, I think it's React-DOM/client. Yep, I think that's it. Okay, let's save that, and inside the index.js file, we want to say what will be the top level component. And on your regular create React app script, it puts it inside app.js file. So let's do that over here as well. I want to import app from /app. Since we haven't created that one, let's go ahead and create. I'm going to do new file, app.js, and I'm going to use RAFCE. I think it's RAFCE. Yep. And then over here, I'm going to say h1, say React application without create React app. Okay, now it shouldn't complain once we are ready to serve our project. Okay, now let me open this index.html for you guys. Since we specified this is going to be the top level div, now we're going to grab this div element, and in order to do that, we're going to use the regular JavaScript function, like regular functions using get element by ID function. Let's say something like cons container equals to, I'm going to use the method from document dot get element by ID, and if we haven't forgot, what was the ID, that was root. So I can copy that, come back here and paste it in there. So now we should have handle over this div element, and we can do whatever we want over here. Now I'm going to say one more thing, which is going to be const root equals to, we're going to use that create root function that we used, imported from ReactDOM/client. I'm going to pass that reference, which is going to be container. I think on the earlier version of React, you could, do directly, if you import ReactDOM from ReactDOM, and you could use function I think you could do ReactDOM.render, if I'm not wrong. I might be wrong on this one, but don't quote me on this, but I think that was it. On the React 18, since we are on the latest version of React, you can't use that. I mean, you can use, but you're going to see the error on console saying this is no longer maintained and this is soon to be deprecated. So that's why we're using create root rather than react-dom.render. Now we have root. Now only thing that we need to do is root.render, and we can just specify what's the file top level component that we want to render, which is going to be app. This is going to be a self-closing tag, and if you're really into accessibility, you can provide the tab of, let's say, what do we want to name it? I'm going to say it is a home page, so let's see, home. All right, so I think we are done with our index.js file too, if I'm not wrong. Now, what are the things that we need to consider? Okay, we set up Babel, so that's done. We set up Webpack, that's done. We set up our HTML templates too, that's done. I create a new component. Okay, I think we're almost ready to like build and serve our project, guys. So now we want to add a script to run the build. Let's start by adding a. You know what? Let's start with the start script, since React has the whenever you run the npm run start, it runs your server. Okay, inside this codes, what you want to have is, because we imported this webpack dev server, right? We want to make a use of this now. We will say webpack dev server, and I'm gonna set up a mode, which is gonna, if you do hyphen mode, you can specify what kind of mode you want to run your webpack on. There's going to be two mode. One is going to be dev mode and one is going to be prod mode. If you do dev mode, webpack will like make sure you will get all of the necessary things that you need for dev. And if you're working on prod, it comes it creates like the efficient bundle, meaning like it will not include any other stuff that you don't need in prod. So that's the purpose of like mentioning dev or like prod. Since we haven't any reference, like we don't have a reference to dev and prod over here, because out of the box, Webpack does, like as soon as you mention the mode, it does a lot of things behind the scene without like you knowing it. When you run this, like start script, I want to run it on development mode. Let's say mention development, and I want to say hot. So hot is the so what's the purpose of hot over here is that like let's say if you make a change on your file, and as soon as you save it, like I want to like do a hot reload, meaning like Webpack is going to run the like script again, restart the server. I mean, it doesn't like restart the server, but like it reloads everything like instantaneously, real time. And if you want your Webpack to open a tab as soon as you run start, and if you want your Webpack to open a tab over here, like with your local host, like whatever the port number is, you can do by like hyphen hyphen, I think it's open, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, I think this will be it. Yeah, we'll test it out later on. Yeah, that's pretty much it in terms of your start script. Now let's say we ran this start script, we made a bunch of changes to our project. Now it's time to zip it. So how do we zip it? We want to have some kind of efficient bundle, right? In order to do that, we're going to use the build command. Our build script, basically it's going to say we're going to use a webpack CLI. That is going to be webpack, and we want to set the mode like we did earlier, but this time it's going to be production. So we want to set up, like create a production build. If I'm not wrong, I think that should be it for our build script too. No, I think it's about like ready to test it. I'm like really scared because we made a bunch of changes over here. I think we're gonna get some sort of issues. Okay, let's test it out. I'm gonna run npm run build. If everything worked properly, it should create a dist folder with our bundle. Oh, looks like it did. So I think we didn't mess up anything at all. So that's good. As you can see, it created this bundle, and you can see this like random string that was created through this content has. Because if we didn't provide this one, it would just say bundle.js, which is not really good for performance. So that's why I added that one. If you see it over here, from our app.js and index.js file, this is the code that Webpack generated. And this is all, like this is only a JavaScript. Like because we have an HTML, we don't have HTML over here, but the plugin that we used, HTML Webpack plugin, it also creates a index.html file, which we can serve it in the web. And if we click that one, as you can see, if I scroll a little bit down, it added, as I mentioned earlier, it added the script tag with the bundle that was created by Webpack. Here is there, our div is there, that root div that we added. So our template is working. So if we see the title too, we added this title on our template right over here, I think. Template simple React application. So now if I just drag this index.html and put it over here, as you can see, well, I can see my changes because that's the change I added on over here, right? So we are able to, like serve this. So as soon as you run the build, the only thing that you need is this index.html file and you're good to go because you already have script tags and everything, like this is pretty cool. Let's close this app.js file for now, and we want to do, all right, you know what, let's add other rules as well before we even run the start script, because I want to show you guys something. Since this build was passed, what I want to do now is I want to create a, let's see, for this h1 I want to give it a name, a class name of let's do heading __ one. I want to copy that, and I'm going to create a CSS file over here. Bear with me guys, because I'm just going to create underneath the source directory, and .css. So app.css file is created. I want to import that so that we can make a use of the styles. I want to do / I think it's app.css. Okay, that should import the CSS file. I think I can close this one. And inside the app.css file, I can paste that class name that I did. And I want to do color of red and background color of sky blue. Okay, now we don't know it yet, because we haven't started our server, so it's not going to change anything. But let's see, if we can build this project. npm run build. Let's create a production build. Oh, there is something wrong. So what it's doing is it's trying to build it, but as soon as it reaches app.css file, it doesn't know how to handle that file for some reason. And if we go back to our webpack config file, because the way to tell webpack how to bundle those bundles of any kind of file is within the rules, right? If we check the rules, I mean that it makes sense, right? Because we just added the rules for JavaScript files. We haven't added the rules for CSS file. That's why it's not working. So let's do that. In order to bundle the CSS files, we need a couple of dependencies or libraries. We need, these are going to be dev dependencies, by the way, npm i-d, and the first one is going to be a style loader, and the second one is the CSS loader. CSS loader helps us to process CSS files. A style loader helps us to process the style tags. Let's install that. And we need to set up a rule for them. Now what we want to do is, okay, we are in the webpack config file. Since I said this is going to be an array, you can provide the array of objects. So we're going to insert a new object in here. Like we did earlier, it's going to be the same process. We're going to test the file first by using regular expressions, and we want to do .css. Hold on, I think it's this way, .css $, and we want to provide I at the end. I think I should be here, I at the end. And let's do use, and it's going to be an array, since we're going to provide a couple of things over here. One is going to be style-loader, and the second one is, what was the other package we installed? CSS loader. Okay, CSS loader. And once we do that, if I didn't mess up anything, now Webpack should know how to process this file. Now let's do npm run build Again, let's see if this works. Yeah, I get really scared whenever I do npm run build because there's a really good chance to mess up. Looks like we didn't mess up. And if I refresh this, as you can see now our CSS is processed properly. Now we're not getting that error anymore. This is really cool. Now the only thing like left to do is let's see if our server works. I want to do npm run start. Fingers crossed. Okay, you guys can see it opened on my next browser, so there you go. Now let's see if it like it works like like create React app server, right? Because as soon as we make a change, we want to see our change on the browser. Let me get rid of this, save it. There you go, it loads instantly. And the last thing that I want to do over here is I want to like I want you guys to see this on this bundle. As you can see, has I'll show you guys one sec, because we didn't make any changes right on this file. Now like I mean we made changes, we deleted that and it ran the build and it reflected on the browser. Now I'm not going to make any change, but I'm just going to do command S to save this file again. I'm just going to do multiple times. If you watch the terminal carefully, you can see like it tried to create a bundle, but like it is using the cast value, because we don't need to run the like a new build because we haven't made any changes at all. So even if I made a one character change, it's going to create a new bundle. That's the like beauty of using that content has. So that way webpack knows like, so this is a good thing, right? You don't have to like run the build again. So now you don't have to wait for the build time. Now your app is going to load like really fast. Like so if I do this, it's instant. Like it doesn't even refresh. I think so. Okay, we added the loader for CSS. Yeah, most of the time guys, if you're setting up this kind of stuff, if you introduce like new files, you're gonna have to use like some sort of loader. So it's gonna be like hit and trial method. I think that should be it, if I'm not wrong, for this video. We're able to like create a React application. Yep, I think that should be good enough for this video. Yeah, I'm planning on doing like creating a whole new playlist so that I can go over the Webpack in the future, and stay tuned for that one. And if you guys enjoy this kind of content, please give it a thumbs up to the video. I know like I'm asking like a lot on this video, but like it massively helps me, like it kind of motivates me like to like make a contents like this, like because if I know like someone is interested on my content, like I feel like extra motivated to do so. So please subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell if you want to stay tuned on my next content. So I think I will catch you guys on the later video. Thanks. Bye.